be sharing how I made this needle felted mermaid birthday crown. I hope you all enjoy and happy creating. I've collected all of the things together that I'm going to need to make my crown. I have a blank piece of printer paper, 2 pieces of felt. These are about the same size as my piece of paper. I have an eraser and a pencil to make my pattern, fabric scissors, scissors that I can use to cut the paper, a needle, thread that I'll be using to blanket stitch the crown when it's finished. I have a foam block for needle felting needles and tools. I also have an assortment of colours of wool roving that I'll be using to felt. And I have some of this wool here. I think I said before in one of my videos that I don't really know what this is called. I tend to call it loopy wool, but I think it's just raw wool that's been washed and dyed. I don't think it's been carded or had any other type of processing. You can still see it has things like little grass seeds in it. You can see that just there. So when you use this type of wool, you have to pick out any of the impurities that you don't want in your needle felting. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is to make our pattern. Now I don't have a set pattern that I use for this. I tend to make it up each time that I make a new crown. Now I'm just using standard A4 printing paper that we have in Australia. If you're not in Australia and don't have A4 paper, this piece of paper is 29.5 centimeters by 21 centimeters, or 11.5 inches by 8.2 inches. Now my felt size is roughly the same size as this bit of paper. So when I do my pattern, I'm not going to trim this to the same size. I'll just leave it and have these tiny little bits extend over my pattern that I'm going to make. Okay, so let's make this pattern. First thing I want to do is fold my piece of paper in half so I know where the middle line is. Now I think I want my crown about this big, so I'm just going to put a dot there so I know where I'm working up to. And I'm going to start, it's going to be about, start over here, and I'm going to do a little, okay, so you can tell I didn't quite meet that, but I don't like how this looks, so I'm going to come back again and bring this down a bit. No, I'm not liking this at all. Let's try that again. Okay, if we start from here, we go up a little. Maybe it needs to go higher. Maybe that's my problem. It looks a bit strange, I think. Yeah, it looks strange on there too. So you can do your design for your crown any way you like. You might like it to have triangle points. I just like them to have nice soft edges. So you can make yours whatever you like. I stop in this middle line, and the reason I do that is when I fold the piece of paper in half, I will only cut this line, and then the other side will be a mirror image of it. So just tidying this up a little bit so I can see a bit better what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to go with this shape. So as I said, fold it back in half, take your paper scissors and cut along your line. Now Are we happy with our crown? I think it could come down a little bit more, so I'm going to play around with this just a minute. See if I can bring this down. So I wanted this to come down here a little bit more. I want the same sort of shape, so I'm just going to do that. Maybe I'll do it a bit higher there. All right, let's see how this looks now. I'm just doing that again because I wasn't holding the paper very straight and the back part of it wasn't the same size. That's better. Okay, I'm happier with that. Right, I'm happy with this shape. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it to my piece of felt. Just get rid of this rubbish. I'm going to pin it to the piece of felt and cut that out. Let's just pin this. I'm just going to put it in the middle. As I said, I'm not going to trim this bit of felt here. I'll just cut along so I don't waste that bit. And our felt crown will be just slightly longer than what our pattern is. Now we'll cut out the felt. Great. Now I've cut out my felt piece, take off my pattern. Maybe I will keep this one for later. Now I have my piece of felt. I'm going to bring in my block, my foam block. I'm going to start to felt a picture onto it. Now the first thing I'm going to do to make my bland blue look a bit more like the ocean is to add a few different colours and maybe some highlights to it. I'm going to go in this direction. I don't want too much, just a few different colours, because when we look at the ocean, it's not one solid colour. So I'm just going to spread this out all over. I don't really want any big clumps. I just want it to sort of blend together with lots of different colours. I want the strands to go up and down. That's just the image I have in my head. Now on top of that, I'm going to put some of these darker threads. As you can see, I'm making these ones sort of come together a little bit more. So they'll be a bit, probably a bit darker and a bit more of a line when it's all felted in a moment. Now over the top of this, I'm going to add some white. As you can see, I'm just grabbing tiny little tufts, pulling the strands out, and then laying it gently over the top. You don't want that little bit in there, so I'll pull that out. Okay, pat it down gently and pull out any bits from your wool that you don't want in your felt. Just adding a bit more. Right, now I'm just going to go ahead and needle felt this. This might take a while. I'm just doing a couple of random stabs to hold the threads in place until I can come over and do a better job. Alright, now I'm just going to spend a few minutes just going over this and making sure it's felted properly. Maybe not properly, maybe just more than it is, because I'm going to add some more details to it and I don't want it to be completely felted already. Or it doesn't really need to be. It doesn't matter if it is. It doesn't need to be felted completely at this moment, because I will be adding more details and that will continue to felt these strands underneath as well. Move it every so often so you don't have issues with your foam getting stuck to your needle felting at the back. The other side, careful of your fingers. It does hurt if you stab them. Okay, I quite like how that's come up now. Now what I want to do is add a tiny little bit of ocean floor. I don't want too much, just so we know that it is the ocean floor. So I'm just going to randomly add little bits of colour. It's not ocean coloured. So this is just a tan colour. I'm going to come and add some more in a second. Maybe some yellows and some greys. I don't want to flatten it along here. It reminds me of the pictures that I used to draw when I was a kid, when you'd have the grass and then you'd have the sky and you'd have whatever in the middle. So I'm trying not to do that. On this side over here, I do have a bunch of bits of wool that I've used from various projects that I've just haven't used up. So I'm using those bits, especially for these little pits where I only need a tiny bit of wool. So this is quite a bright yellow. I'm not using too much of it because it's not really what I wanted to look like. I didn't want the sand across the bottom like this. I'm going to felt this and then I'm going to come and add some rock colours. Actually, I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of grey in first before I get some more rocks. Okay, I'll add this. Again, I'm just doing a couple little stabs here and there to make sure my pieces don't drift away. Now, let's go back and felt them in properly. Not properly, just more so. Now what I want to do is to start add some of the seaweed and coral here. So to begin with, I'm just going to take some very dark threads and just want them sort of going from the bottom, twist them so we've got some quite thin threads. And I'm just going to bring this in, maybe that was a bit thick, or maybe make that into two. I just want some thin threads going through the background of the ocean. So we've got some green in the background. Try not to make them so uniform. Maybe like this, and I might get some light green through there as well. I get some of my light green, which for some reason has some blue in it. That's fine. I think I might add a little tiny bit of blue strand like that too. Just a couple. And again, I might add a bit more white, just to sort of soften this a little. I'm just going to felt a little bit over the top like I have been to hold it in place before I go over again and felt it a little bit better. I've finished felting these little green strands on here. Now I'm going to go ahead and take some of the loopy wool and make little coral pieces out of it. So I like that it's curly, but I don't want it so thick. I don't want to rip it apart because that will make the rest of it fluffy. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to trim that bottom bit off a little. Now I'm just going to let that sit like here. I'm just going to try to follow it up in one line and then fold the pieces back onto it and follow the same line that I've used. So it's not so thick and fluffy. So you can see I'm coming from both sides, just trying to push it back into one spot so it becomes thinner and not so thick and fluffy. If I don't like the way it's sitting, I can just push it where I want it to go. I don't really want the white bit down here, so I'm going to snip that bit off. It's not here. Now I'm going to add some more. I'm actually going to leave this bottom bit. I've been cutting it off for the other two, but this bit I'm going to leave. I might snip the top of that one though. Did I put it? There it is. All right. Oh, what have I done? I'm also going to use some of the wool roving to add some more. So I'm just going to do it exactly the same way. Attach it to the bottom and follow along the line of it to create a piece of seaweed. Just changing the shape of it so it looks a little bit more like it's in an ocean and not just drawn by a 7-year-old. You can see how I've just pushed the strands out of the way, and then when I got them where I want them, I just felt them a little bit. So I'm just continuing to add seaweed here. I'm going to go ahead and add more seaweed throughout my ocean floor. Now I've added quite a lot of seaweed here. I want to add a couple of little blobs of coral, maybe one here and over here, just to add a little bit more color. So to make my coral, I'm just taking a tiny bit of little wool, rolling it so it's almost a tiny little ball, and then I'm just going to attach it by stabbing it in one spot. That will make a little ball. So I've got one. Now I'm going to do that many more times. So you don't want much. I could probably do 2 little balls. So remember, I attach it by stabbing it in the same spot, and that makes a little ball. And again. In the same spot. Keep bringing the bits of wool over onto the spot that you're stabbing into. Now we're going to keep doing this until it's the size that I want it to be. That one's probably a bit big, but we'll see how we go. It's okay. Roll it to a little ball. Ouch, that's my finger. Just keep pulling it off your mat so you don't get stuck. Now I just want to add a tiny bit of highlights to these. And to do that, I'm taking a tiny bit of wool and I'm just going to push it into some of them. Just like that. Make sure you keep lifting it up. Just so it's not a big blob of dark purple. Add a little bit of pink in there too. Ouch. Now what I want to do is I want to add a tiny little bit of pink coloured coral. If we use some of the just want to add a tiny little one. So you can use whatever colours you like to make your coral or your seaweed. am I going to do this? So we can get that out of there with scissors. And if I bring you, no, you're going to be fluffy. Stop being fluffy. If I bring that up there, that might be nice. I feel we need a piece coming up here. Let me find another bit. Oh, you look nice. I'm gonna start up here. I'm going to use the multi-tool here to felt that a bit faster. You still feel I'm missing it. Oh, make sure you move it around so it doesn't get stuck on the bottom. I'll just cut that bit off. Now I'm going to make another little coral on the other side over here, like I said, or maybe here. Looks like it might make a nice coral. We'll snip you there. Oh, that does look nice. Now, if I just touch it exactly as it is, that would be fantastic. So I have to keep coming back and pushing these strands over to where I want them. Alright, give me a few minutes to attach this, and then we might attach some more over here, and I'll see you in a minute. I finished adding all the seaweed that I want here, so now what I am going to do, so I've decided I'm going to cut along the bottom here, just to tidy things up, and up the top as well, and then I'm going to felt it all really well before I begin adding the mermaid. So as you can see, I'm running the scissors along the bottom of the felt. I'm just giving it a trim all the way around, and then I'm going to felt the whole thing really well before we try our mermaid. I'm hoping when I come along and felt all of the edges that these bits will recede in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and go over everything that I've done really well, because I don't want this coming apart. So this might take me 20 minutes or so to make sure it's all felted really nicely. Remember to keep lifting up your felt from your foam block or it will get stuck. I'm paying special attention to these edges because I did just cut the wool there and they won't be felted at all. Okay, so I might see you in a minute when I've finished felting the whole thing. Now I've just been spending some time felting my crown here and I'm happy with it all being felted, and I've gone ahead and drawn a little mermaid design. Yes, that's a mermaid. I just wanted to have this shape so I could see how it was going to sit on here before I added it. I thought the easiest way to make the mermaid would be to make it just on the foam block before I add it to the crown. So I'm going to start doing that with my pattern in mind. Now you can do whatever skin color you like. I'm just going to go with this light peachy white color. So first I want to do is make this part of the body here. I'm going to do up to about here in sort of a banana shape because the tail will come over this part. So I'm going to start, something like that. Just wrap it and I'm just trying to get a general shape to begin with. And just going to keep adding a little bit more wool over the top of it. I want it to pop out from our background a little bit, so I'm making it with a little bit more height than I did with our coral. So there's a few layers of wool to go over to make this bit of felt. Now, what am I going to do with this? My options are to cut it and make the arms here, or I can make the arms separate and attach them. I think I might cut them and start here. Okay, now let's build up these arms a little bit. I'm going to do it with my single needle, that might be helpful. Remember to keep moving it off your block so you don't get stuck. Going back to the single needle. I'm going to keep adding a little bit more wool to these and then felting over it until we get some sort of arm shapes, because that's what I'm going for. And then I'll felt it all. This is sort of this shape here. So I definitely need to do some work on this. It will become a little bit smaller with all the felting. I'm just going to keep bringing these little tufts of wool back onto itself and felting them in. Keep pulling it up. Just pushing the little tufts back again. I don't want our mermaid to have hairy arms. Ouch. That was my finger again. Second time to stab it. Got a bit of foam in there, so I'm going to get that bit out. And now I've given her hairy arms again. So let's go over that. Okay, I'm liking these arms. I'm just going to go ahead and felt the body section a little bit more, and before I add a head. I'm really making sure that I felt in this curved position, otherwise I'm going to end up with a straight mermaid. Now as I'm going, I'm pushing the fluffy bits underneath and felting it, trying to give her a smooth body. Sometimes it helps if you roll it along your foam block and then felt. So I keep putting it on here to make sure I'm getting the right shape. I need to curve it a little bit more, I think. So I'm just going to bend it. You can see I've got a little tuck here. I'm just going to try to needle felt that smooth. And hopefully, if I do that, it'll stay where I want it to stay. Yeah, it's doing a pretty good job. Again, I'm just tucking those little fluffy bits underneath. Okay, you can see see she still doesn't have a head yet. I'll get to her head in a minute. Now this arm isn't really doing what I want it to do, so I'm going to needle felt that a little bit more. Hopefully it'll hold more in that position. Oh, that's better. Now I'm going to add some colour for the tail. What colour do you think? I was thinking, so if I put this here, I can see how it's going to go. Something like this. So I can either have pink. Oh, this one looks better than that one. What about purple? No, I'm liking this pink. I think we'll go with this pink. So here, just to cover this bit, I'll wrap that around. And then I'm going to felt that. Okay, that's a good start. Just try to be mindful, because I just wasn't, where your tail should start, where the skin part is, and which is the tail part. Just keeping this tail where it should be. Now what I wanted to do for the end of the tail, I'm just going to attach this here to give me more tail. Okay, I'm just going to fold and felt. I will get rid of that bump in a minute. I'm just trying to get a basic shape for our mermaid's tail. Keep lifting again. Put it a little bit bigger than that. Got to have a nice tail. So I'm going to attach this bit here. Again, we attach first and then shape. Okay. Okay, let's lift before I felt it to the block. Now I'm just going to try and roll this side in again, like I did with the body, folding that bit under and then felting as I go. Now how did I want this to sit? I want that little bit to stick up. I'm just going to felt this a little bit. It seems a bit fluffy and I think it's going to shrink down a little bit. Okay, now I just spend a little bit more time felting this. Very carefully, I'm going to felt the edges in. So they're not so lumpy, but I don't want to stab myself again. Now my mermaid is quite flat, so I want to come and add tiny little bits in the middle to give her a bit more, to make her a bit rounder, not too much, especially sort of this. So I'll do a little bit here and through here. I'll use this one. I have more accuracy with this one. That one's just faster. I'll give it a little bit more of a belly. Because that's what all mermaids need, is belly. I don't think mermaids have enough belly. Just going to be careful not to felt this onto the pink. That will help give me a defined tail. Again, if you've got the furry edges, just roll towards it and then felt the edges. Same as the other side, roll towards it and then felt the edges. Okay, that's looking better. Now what I wanted to do is add a little bit of purple to this. So I'm just going to very gently fan this little bit of wool out over it, just to give it a bit more colour. And a tiny bit more. Now I'm going to felt that on. This one's the reason that's not working. Now fold over like we did. And felt the edges. Fold over and felt the edges. And the same on the other side. We fold and then we felt. Fold. And felt again. I've just finished attaching the head. I created the head by making a ball shape and then felting it onto the body just above the arms. Now I'm about to attach the hair. I've decided to use some of this loopy wool. I felted it slightly together here and I'm just going to put it on the top of the head and spend some time felting it, sort of in a line across here. So this might take a while to felt in this position. This bit at the top, it doesn't quite, I've run out of head, so I'm going to fold it over the back. I guess that's what normal hair does anyway. It goes over the head. So I'm just going to spend some time going in one line to try to felt these pieces. Ouch, that was my finger again. I seem to do that. I try to move the wool out of the way and then I stab myself. So again, I'm just working in this little line here. Now I did want a little bit more hair around her face, so I'll just pull a little bit and felted it. Also tells me that I'm not quite done felting because I can pull the wool out. So this might take a few minutes. Okay, there's my hair. Now I'm going to take a bit of, what do I want, green or do I want blue? Let's have a look. I'm going to make a band out of this. Sort of like she's wearing a headband. I want it to look sort of like this. Just want this bit to sit straight a little bit. Just going to pretend I have a brush. Bring that out. Might even give her a haircut. Not that one, this one. Alright, this is dangerous work. I'm going to stab myself for sure here. Try this. want that to go along here. Now again, I'm just going to put a couple of little stab points and push the threads where I want them to go. I want it to look like it's going around her head. I'm just going to felt this a little bit so it doesn't come out. The front here is a bit tricky. And her face. Now I'll take a little bit more from the back so it makes it look like it's actually tied around from the back. So I'll just continue that along that line that we were stabbing before. I'm just going to roll the edges a little bit. Now what I want to do is I want to add some little flowers. What colour would I? Probably pink, the light pink that we've been using. So again, to make tiny little dots, you take a tiny bit, roll it in your fingers first, and you stab it in the one place that you want it to go. I feel that's going to be big. Let's give it a go anyway. Ouch. Okay, I'll put another one. I think smaller than that. I'm going to put it here. I'm just stabbing it in the one spot that I want it to go in. And I think one more. So I'm making a little headband on my mermaid, but if you wanted to, you could use the same sort of technique to make it a crown. Now I think she needs an eye. I'm just going to fan that out a little bit. That looks nice. Now an eye. I want it small. I don't want a big eyeball. That would be weird. Okay, now where should the eyeball go? About there? Maybe about there. I'm just going to give her face a little bit more shape underneath, try to give her a chin. I'm going to leave it just like that. Now, we need some tail flukes. To do this, I've got a giant mess here. There's stuff everywhere. And it's all getting mixed up. All right, now to do this, I'm just going to take a bit of wool, just like that, and another bit, and just like that. I'm just going to fold it and mix it a little. Yeah, nice work. Now, I'm going to separate it again. Out that bit, and I've got a bit of grass seed. I don't want that. Okay, that's going to be my tail fluke. Now let's attach our mermaid. The fluke goes last. Attach the mermaid. So this is where I'm going to push the fluffy bits down and under, and then I'm going to attach on an angle to attach our mermaid. So Some of these fluffy bits are actually handy right now. Who would have thought? So we're just going to go around all the edges and attach her. This might take you a while to attach her well. We don't want the mermaid coming off. So keep turning and keep lifting your crown off your foam block. I'd hate for you to do all this work and then have it get stuck there, and at the back you'd have pieces of foam and you'd ruin your foam block. So just turn it so you can see what you're doing. Going to carefully attach this arm. So I've gone ahead and attached our mermaid. I've used the multi-tool to go over her tail and under her hair a little bit. I've attached the hair a little bit so it's less likely to come off. Okay, now it's time to attach our tail. What I've got is our two bits here, and I do have this little tuft that you may remember. I'm going to squash it into that end bit, fold the top over, and where's my needle? Just needle felt that little bit there. I'm going to try to keep it all in one tiny little section. It's really hard to do and show you at the same time. So you just want to felt just that little tiny section there. Now we let that fan out. Lift it up. Okay, so here's our tail flick, and the next thing we're going to do is bring our backing in and work with our blanket stitch around the edges. Now I've finished all of my felting of the front of the crown. So as you know, we've already cut out the back piece. So I've gone ahead and machine stitched 2 pieces of ribbon onto the edges of the crown. Now these bits will be on the inside. So I'm going to take the front of the crown and then we're going to blanket stitch the edges so that ribbon will be encased in the middle. Thank you for watching, and if you found this video helpful, show your support by giving it a like. And if you'd like to stay updated with all of my new tutorials, please subscribe.